bust, bring you from the head to
YOLO, Composing Gloves here, and today we're going to be talking about the last root position part writing we can have. So we've done repeated roots, we've done roots of third and a sixth of a part, and we've done roots of fifth and a fourth apart. And so that's almost everything. We're only missing one more. Earlier in another video, I said 5 too, which is a total mistake. There's only 4. That's seconds and sevenths apart. So what happens when we have roots that are second and seventh apart? What if we want to go from, I don't know, a 2 chord to a 3 chord? How do we tackle that part writing wise? So this one is the most complicated of them because there's not really a standard approach. It's just sort of it's like, I don't know. There is one way of thinking about it, but it only works under one circumstance. So we're going to talk about that. And then I'm going to show you a more general way of thinking about it. But hopefully through all the previous exercises, we are now ready to tackle this, and it shouldn't be that hard. Also, you now know after this, you'll know how to deal with any root position movement in a key. So if you go second or seventh apart, a fourth apart, a fifth apart, whatever it is. So if someone were to come up to you and say, hey, can you write a piece of music for me? I need a tonal 4-part harmony or whatever. And that's like what people are like. They're like, whatever, bro. So you could say yes. You could say, yeah, I'll take that gig. However, you still don't know the chords you would really pick. We haven't really talked about that. So harmony 2 thing, phrases, sentences, musical sentences, all these things we'll talk about later. And but you could take it. You could do it, and you could write something that passes and most generally follows the rules of 4-part harmony. It would be kind of stagnant because we're not writing in inversions yet or anything, but you could do it. So I just want to congratulate you on going from the beginning where you were just building chords all the way to this. This is a huge, you've really stepped your way up. So congratulations on making it this far. So, okay, so enough with that. Let's move on. So when we're writing with roots a second apart or a seventh apart, it's the same because they're just inversions of each other. There's really one way we could deal with this. Now, before we do, let's consider it. So here's a D minor chord, and let's say we want to go to E minor. The first thing we notice is, DFA, EGB. We say jank. They share no chord tones. None of them, there's nothing in common here. And so this is a problem because, what are we going to do? So for this reason, it's generally considered the most complicated because every voice must move. No voice can stay where it is. And so there is a circumstance. There's one situation where we can sort of have a general approach to it, and that's how you double. So let's say you're doubling, and you follow your doubling procedure as you would normally do. So you would double your root. If you double your root, this works. If you don't double your root, this no longer works. So let's take a look here. So if we double our root, which is what we typically want, but maybe you've been constricted by previous voicings you've chosen to use, and you've had to omit a root. You can't double it for some reason, or you want to include all the members of the chord. For whatever reason, you can't double your root. And so in the case where you can, though, we simply resolve the voices by moving contrary to the bass. So so let's just take an example. So here's a D to a D. Doubled root. So this is going to work out great. This should work for us. So what I'm saying is that what my claim is, you can resolve this without any issues with parallels if you have all your upper voices, so tenor, alto, and soprano, moving contrary to your bass. So as long as they all go down, these 3 guys, as long as these 3 move down in a similar motion to the nearest chord tone, in the opposite direction. So my bass is going up, so these 3 go down, it'll work out. So obviously this is an example of that. So here we have DFA, and I say, well, none of these chord tones are the same because I'm moving by a second or a seventh. In this case, it's a second. So I say, okay, obviously this has to be an E because I'm writing in root position. So this has got to be D and an E. And then I think to myself, all right, I have an A. What is the closest note in this chord to an A? I look at this A to G. That looks pretty solid. I could go up to a B if I wanted, but I decided to go down. Actually, it's probably a smarter move because this would be in the key of C major, and B is the leading tone. So if I put a B here, I would be constrained to go up to a C because it's occurring in my melody. So I choose to go down to a G, just in this case, so that we don't have to include a third chord here, right? And then I say, all right, well, this one has to go down also because they all have to go in the same direction. And so I say, well, F is pretty close to E. So I move that to an E. And so this is movement by third. That's fine. And then I say here, well, this is we have a D to a B. And this is the nearest tone available, right? And we end up getting this. And then over here, here's another example from 4 to 5. Following a similar idea, the bass goes down, so these three voices resolve up. And you can do this works with any set of chords. So these are just two examples, and I even included the letters above that one for you. I normally don't do that because it's bad habit. So let's go ahead. Let's just do an example real quick because this is a little overwhelming. Now you might be saying to yourself, what do I do if the root's not doubled? In this case, I have a 5 chord. My G and G, they're doubled there. So you say, what do I do if my root isn't doubled? Well, you got to, there's not really a way to do it. Not a standard way like this. We're like, oh, yeah, just resolve the other ones going down. There's not like that. So in this way, it's sort of cool because you just sort of do what you think is the best idea. You can be more musical about it. Not to say the other ones are less musical, just I think it's a little more freedom. The general consensus is you want to be as smooth as possible. The smoother you are, usually the safer you are. But you still have to watch out for those octaves, hidden octaves, parallel movement, all that stuff. You still have to watch out for it. So let's do an example because that's pretty much what you're going to be told. Just be smooth. So let's say that I want to go from a C major chord to a D minor chord. Right, a simple example. So we say, okay, I want to go from my 1 chord to my 2 chord. Well, let's do one where the root's not doubled because you've seen how to deal with the doubled root. It's not that crazy. So let's do one where the root's not doubled. So let's do a C. Let's have an E. Let's double the third, right? Doubling the third isn't that bad. Oh, I'm in the wrong voice. Let's change my voicing. Okay, so now let's double the third. So we'll double the E. So I'll put an E here and an E here. And I'm missing the G, right? So we'll include the G because we generally want all our stuff here, right? So I say, okay, C, E, E, G, C, E, G, C major chord, right? And I think, well, this has got to be D, F, A. And let's let me type that out for you. D, F, A, right? Okay, so we've got C, E, G, and D, F, A. And I think, okay, this is a C to D. Those are already chosen because it's in root position, right? Now, these other ones, E, I say, well, E, let's go to my melody first. Generally, you want to consider your top voice next. So you say, okay, G. I say, well, okay, that's pretty close to an A, but it could also go down to an F. Either one will work in this case. I'll go up to an A. What the heck? We'll go up to an A. So we say, now we check real quick and we say, well, these two voices have a special thing. So let's check real quick. And we say, well, this is a C and that's a G. That's a fifth. And we say, this is a D and that's an A. That's another fifth. So this is parallel fifths. So we can't do that. So that constrains us to either leap, which in this case would be a large leap, probably not the best idea. So we'll go down to an F. And this is safe. Now between D and F, that's a third. So we've avoided the parallel movement. So we've taken care of that. Let's go ahead and move on to our inner voices now. So generally inner voices, the less movement you see in them, it's commonly said the less your inner voices move, generally the better your voice leading is. I don't personally agree with that philosophy, but academically speaking, if you're writing it on a test, it's pretty true. Okay. It depends on what sounds you like, right? So we have D and we have F. Now we still need an A. And so let's say, okay, we still need an A. Which of these can we get an A out of? Well, we know this E definitely can't go up to the F. Well, it could. We'd reduce it. We'd reduce our texture. And this E, right? These are both E's. One of them is going to have to leap to an A if we're going to have an A in our chord. And so we say, well, E to A, what is that? A fourth? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's a fourth. What the heck? We'll put the E here. And we will move this one. We could move it up to an F. Or we could move it down to the A. Or we can move it. Oh, we can move it to the D. Let's move it to the D. I don't know why I missed that one. So we have this leap here. It's like, Now, if we had chosen a different voicing, this is a good point. So you might get to something like this and be like, oh, I'm not so sure. I like the where this is going. You could choose a different voicing, right? And so you can make it so that your top voice is no longer G. Maybe you have a G. That would be cross voicings. Maybe we put our G down here, and we have our E here. You know, what if our voicing was like that? Well, then in this case, this could resolve up to the F. It'd be a little bit smoother. And this could be resolved up to the A. And this could be resolved down to a D. In this case, actually, it'd be pretty nice. And we have contrary movement. And this is a C to an E. So I think actually this one actually is a little bit better. It's a little bit smoother. But the other one, the one we just had, let me copy this and let's undo it so we can sort of compare them. Is that what we had? That was what we had. And then put that there. Whatever. I'll undo this. We won't worry about the text for now. So two different voicings. Let's hear the difference, right? Because you might be going, well, what's the difference between these? Here we notice we have parallel third movements. So if we have like a motion of thirds going through our melody line, we may prefer this voicing. If we're more concerned with being as smooth as possible and giving ourselves a few more options, because now our melodies, we don't have to worry too much about our melody. Actually, in this case, it works out okay in both cases because we could go up to an A. But if we were going to like a 2, 3, it'd be a different case. But I don't even know why I mentioned that to you. It went through my mind, so I just said it, okay? But here we go. So let's take a close listen to this. Just listen to the first one. So say that's nice. This sounds nice. It's nice. And if we had a motion with our melody like that, that could be something that really we'd want to use that voicing. Let's say we don't, though. Let's say we have this instead. So this is a little closer. They follow through with each other nicely just because, it worked out. But we've been following pretty strict rules. So that's some examples. Now, you see, I'm just explaining all this stuff out loud. Some of it you may not pick up on. For those of you who picked up on the reference to the 3 chord, that's because the 3 chord contains the leading tone, right? So what you're doing with your soprano voice, if your soprano voice is playing the 3rd on a minor 3 chord in a major key, you could have a problem because you're constrained to go up to you'd have to go 7-1, right? You'd have to resolve the B natural up to the C in the key of C major. That's all I was pointing out, but I said it sort of in a clunky way. So I apologize for that, but I'm just explaining this because I've seen students that just simply have no bearing whatsoever on how to think about doing this. So hopefully through all the previous exercises, you can come to this and you've now got a pretty solid process for working through different voicings. There's a lot of options you have. A lot of times we sort of feel constrained because, there's all these rules about fifths and octaves, but there's a lot we can still do. And so there's a couple of examples for you. I'm going to undo this because this is part of my the exercise I'm going to have you do. So let's go on to the exercise, and that's pretty much what you're going to be doing. This is substantially more advanced. We definitely stepped up our game here a little bit with second to seventh, but at this point you now can tackle literally any problem. So what I want you to do is create 4 progressions, with 2 of them being roots a second apart and 2 of them being roots a third apart. And in fact, I might even encourage you to do one of these 2, 3 ones because look at here. So the B, right, is the 7. And so if that goes up to a C, if that doesn't go up to a C, we've got a problem. So we keep it at the G so that we do not run into that problem, because a 7 should always resolve to a 1 if it's in our melody. If it's in an inner voice, it's not a big deal. This is something we've said a couple of times. So perhaps pick a 2, 3 in some key. I've actually listed the keys I would like you to use. Major, minor, I don't care. I did all mine in major. for the answers. At least I think I did. I can't remember at the moment. And so there's that. And then the other two should be roots a second apart. This should say seventh, not a third. The other two should be roots a seventh apart because we're doing second and seventh. So there you go. And then this last one, you're going to have two progressions, one 4-bar progression here and another 4-bar progression. And each should be 4 bars long. They can be in any key. So they could both be in C major. I don't care. You've got a lot to worry about, and this is a difficult subject the first time you're introduced to it. So you could stay in C major. You could, if you want to challenge yourself, or if you're comfortable in other keys, I'd encourage you to go to another key, but you don't have to. I believe I did my answers in C major just for people who want to check their work. It's an easy key to think in for most people, so they could see an example of it. Each should contain at least 3 of the 5. This should say 4 of the 4 possible root position movements we have covered, right? So all I'm saying is this is very up in the air. Basically, write a small phrase for a song. So we've got repeated roots, movement by 4ths and 5ths, movements by 3rds and 6ths, and movements by 7ths and 2nds. And so I want you to go through and, pick out 3 of those and write 2 progressions using them. So pretty easy to do. If you have any questions about this stuff, let me know. I quite enjoy it, if you can't tell. I think it's challenging and fun and sort of like a little puzzle every time you look at it. And the better you know the rules, the more interesting it sort of becomes, because you start asking questions like, what about this and what about that? And so this is very rigid. I mean, we get into, as you progress into more advanced harmony topics, you begin to encounter the realm of enormous additional things you could consider. And so get good at this. It's a tool that is very useful, especially when you gain an ear for it, which is a musicianship course. I'm thinking about doing one of those because it is immensely beneficial when you do musicianship with music theory. That's like sight singing and sight reading rhythms. I'm assuming your reading rhythms and stuff is pretty okay at this point. We're not dealing with incredibly complex things. When we get into more advanced harmony, though, it will become a thing you will have to consider. Subscribe and have a blessed day.